Something is being hidden in plain sight, and a U.S. senator just risked everything to say it out loud. 3.5 years of investigation, thousands of secret financial documents, and one shocking conclusion. Someone in power helped protect the man at the center of one of the darkest scandals in modern history. For years, people thought the case was closed, that justice had already been served. But what Senator Ron Wyden uncovered suggests that the story we were told was only the surface, and that behind it all was a network of money, influence, and silence stretching from Wall Street to Washington. He stood on the Senate floor and said the words that shook even his colleagues. The U.S. Treasury may be sitting on the financial trail that funded one of the most horrific trafficking operations of our time.
As to why a child sex trafficker deserves that additional comfort. House Republicans seem no longer interested in having Maxwell testify. Yesterday, it was reported that a member of Donald Trump's inner circle gave a high-paying job to another close Epstein associate, a man named Mr. Indike. That sounds, Mr. President, about as bizarre and wrong as you can get. My colleagues and I believe it's a big mistake for the Senate to go out of session without making real progress on real transparency on the Epstein issue. There are a number of ways you can do that. So let me say a little bit about our investigation, which began 3.5 years ago, Mr. President. So it's been looked at by Democrats and Republicans. From the outset, it's been built on the fact that you've got to follow the money to be at the core of this global sex trafficking operation, which, on the basis of what we have seen, has been funded lavishly. We began by examining the financial ties between Mr. Epstein and a Wall Street titan named Leon Black. We found that Black paid Epstein $170 million over just a couple of years. He said it was, quote, for tax and estate planning. The central claim, though, was what's noteworthy, Mr. President. The claim was that Mr. Epstein was a financial wizard, some superstar in terms of looking at taxes and estates, and he could perform accounting miracles. It appears this kind of work for Black and others was one of Mr. Epstein's biggest sources of income. Now here's the catch. Epstein wasn't an accountant or a tax attorney at all. And Leon Black, who's extraordinarily well off, already employed the best tax advisors in the business. He didn't need Mr. Epstein to handle his money. Black's lawyers even told our investigators, and let me just keep it brief, that Epstein's work wasn't very impressive. He made mistakes, and his work needed to be double-checked by people who were actually tax experts. So Mr. Black was paying Mr. Epstein more than double the income of the average Fortune 500 CEO. And Mr. Black wasn't the only one paying Mr. Epstein top dollar for this so-called financial advice. That's where we've got to go to follow the money. Last year, my investigators went to the Treasury Department and reviewed thousands of bank documents related to Mr. Epstein's financing. We've spoken at length about those documents here on the Senate floor. It's a whole set of Epstein files in the possession of the Treasury Department, above and beyond the files in the possession of the Department of Justice. So that's a key point, Mr. President. You've got to look, if you're going to follow the money, at the Treasury Department, not just at the Department of Justice. We've been trying to get those documents. The Trump administration's been blocking us. We've demanded answers from the new head of the IRS about why its criminal investigators didn't look into Epstein's work for Leon Black or whether they did any investigation of Epstein at all. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars paid by ultra-wealthy individuals to a known sex trafficker for the purpose of dodging billions in taxes. It is unthinkable that those transactions were never audited or investigated. A deep dive on this, starting with the IRS criminal investigations operation, could have blown the lid off Epstein's cover story about being a financial genius quite some time ago. It could have helped uncover the financing behind these horrific crimes. One last point in terms of an update. There are all kinds of pundits out there chattering about whether this is the right political issue to focus on. My message is blunt, Mr. President. This is not about politics. This is not about Democrats and Republicans. So I just want to make it clear this is about whether there's going to be justice for the victims of a notorious sex trafficker who did not abuse these women and girls alone. This is about whether there's going to be accountability for the people who enabled and participated in Epstein's crimes. The question really is, as I close, who is the government looking out for? The rich and powerful, even those who do horrible things, or the powerless, the victims of abuse who've been neglected for too long? Donald Trump wants this to go away without any accountability. And for him, that might be about self-preservation. But it's clear the Trump administration, based on our detailed work, doesn't want to do the right thing here. I'm 3.5 years into my investigation of one aspect of the Epstein story because there ought to be accountability and justice for the victims. So I am here to bring my colleagues up to date on our investigation. There will be more this summer, particularly about the Treasury Department, which is sitting on thousands and thousands of Epstein documents of its own, and they shouldn't be allowed to skate on this. We are going to keep investigating. We're going to keep put the pressure on, because this is not about blue. It's not about red. It's about doing the right thing and making sure something like this doesn't happen again. Senator Merkley and my colleagues are doing the right thing today, and I want it understood as somebody who's led this investigation for more than 3.5 years, I support them strongly, and I yield the floor.
And the government, the very people who promise transparency, are blocking the truth. Let that sink in. Not just an individual predator, but an entire system that looked the other way while money flowed through the accounts of billionaires and bankers. Wyden's message was clear: follow the money, and you'll find the truth that he didn't come with vague accusations or political theater. He came with receipts, timelines, documents, and names. And his question was brutally simple. If the government has nothing to hide, why are they refusing to hand over the files? Because those files, he said, could reveal how Jeffrey Epstein, a man with no accounting license, no legal credentials, and a history everyone knew, somehow became the personal financial advisor to some of the wealthiest men on earth. Wyden and his team spent years piecing it together. They discovered that Epstein's supposed consulting business wasn't about financial advice at all. It was about connections and control. Take one example: billionaire Leon Black, a titan of Wall Street, a man surrounded by the best tax lawyers in America. And yet, he paid Epstein $170 million over just a few years for what he claimed was estate and tax planning. Wyden's investigators didn't buy it. They called it what it looked like: a smokescreen. Even Black's own legal team admitted Epstein's work wasn't impressive. He made mistakes. He had to be double-checked by real accountants. So why pay him more than double the salary of a Fortune 500 CEO? That's the question Wyden asked on the Senate floor. Was Epstein selling financial miracles or silence? Because it wasn't just Leon Black. Other powerful figures in finance and politics were wiring millions to Epstein for reasons no one could clearly explain. And that's when Wyden's investigation took a darker turn. His team obtained access to thousands of bank documents inside the Treasury Department, transactions, suspicious transfers, and private financial records tied to Epstein's empire. Records that had never been made public. He revealed something almost no one had known. The Treasury Department, not just the Justice Department, holds an entire cache of Epstein files. Financial records that could expose who funded him, who protected him, and how deep his influence really went. But instead of transparency, Wyden ran into a wall. Every request for those documents was denied. Every attempt to review them was delayed or buried. And when his team asked why, the answers kept changing. That's when Wyden realized this wasn't just a bureaucratic delay. It was a cover-up. The very agencies meant to investigate financial crimes were stonewalling the investigation into one of the biggest financial scandals in decades. Imagine that. The same Treasury Department tasked with enforcing financial transparency was refusing to release the records of a man accused of running a global trafficking operation funded by billionaires. That Wyden's team called it what it was: obstruction. They warned that without those documents, The public may never see the full truth about how Epstein built and maintained his empire, or who helped him do it, because this isn't only about one man's crimes. It's about the system that allowed him to thrive. A system where wealth bought invisibility and power ensured silence. And the deeper Wyden looked, the stranger it got. Reports surfaced that top officials seemed more interested in protecting reputations than protecting victims. Epstein's longtime partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, was quietly moved to a minimum security prison, an unusual privilege for someone convicted of serious crimes. House leaders who once demanded her testimony suddenly changed their minds. And another Epstein associate landed a cushy position thanks to someone deep inside the political establishment. Each move raised the same chilling question. Were these coincidences or favors for people who still had something to hide? Wyden's investigation suggests that what happened wasn't random. It was deliberate. A system of quiet deals and unspoken protection stretching across government and finance. He reminded the Senate that Epstein didn't act alone. He had help, financial help, political help, logistical help. People who knew what he was doing, but kept the money flowing because it benefited them. And yet, when Wyden's team demanded answers from the IRS, asking why no one had ever audited the hundreds of millions Epstein earned from billionaires, they were met with silence. The same silence that had protected him for decades. Follow the money, Wyden said, and you'll find everything. He wasn't exaggerating, because the records inside the Treasury Department could reveal the hidden architecture of Epstein's world. The accounts, the shell companies, the offshore transfers. The blueprint of how power protects itself. That Wyden's floor speech wasn't about partisanship. It wasn't about politics. It was about truth versus power. And the fact that even now, years after Epstein's death, the institutions meant to serve the public are serving someone else. He asked one final question that echoed through the chamber. Who is the government looking out for? The powerful or the powerless? That question hits deeper than most people realize. Because if the powerful can hide financial crimes behind political privilege, then justice becomes a luxury reserved for the few. And that's why this story matters. Because the cover-up isn't just about Epstein. It's about every system that let him exist. Every banker who looked away. Every official who stalled an investigation. Every agency that kept secrets in the name of national interest. The message was unmistakable. As long as those files stay hidden, the truth stays buried. And without pressure from the public, those secrets may never see the light of day. But Wyden ended his speech with something rare in politics, a promise. He vowed that his investigation wasn't over, that there are more documents, more names, and more revelations still to come. He said this summer could finally bring answers, if the public demands them, because justice delayed is justice denied. And every day those records stay sealed, the victims remain voiceless, and the people who enabled Epstein stay protected. What happens next depends on us. Because silence, as Wyden said, is complicity. That if this story disappears again, if people stop asking questions, then the same pattern repeats. The powerful escape, the victims are forgotten, and the truth fades into the shadows once more. But if enough people demand transparency, if enough people refuse to be silent, the cover-up can't hold. The truth isn't gone. It's waiting, in the Treasury files, in the bank records, in the evidence that powerful people never wanted you to see. And maybe, just maybe, the real story of Jeffrey Epstein isn't about how he lived or died. It's about what his story reveals about everyone who helped him, and everyone who still wants to keep it quiet. Because when the money trail is finally exposed, it won't just be about one man. It'll be about an entire system built to protect the rich at the expense of the powerless. And if that doesn't make you question who's really in control, it should. If you believe the full truth deserves to come out, if you believe no one should be above accountability, make sure this story doesn't get buried again. Share this video, drop a comment, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because the story isn't over, and the truth still matters.